Good evening, FIDF followers. Thank you so much for being with us today. You know, it's been a few weeks since we've heard directly from the IDF, and so that is why we are so honored to have IDF spokesperson Major David Ross with us today. There's been so much activity really on every front. We have a lot to cover today. So without further ado, Major David, please take it away.
Thank you very much, Lara, and thank you to all of the FIDF friends and partners. I was telling Lara earlier that we really view all of you as strategic partners of ours, both because of your donations, your thoughts, your prayers, your continual interest and support, and also just because you care. And so, Lara, throughout this briefing, feel free to ask any questions, to jump in, make this as much of a conversation as possible. As an IDF spokesperson, we seek to be as transparent as we can, given the circumstances and given sort of military limits. And
we're honored to have this conversation with you. So thank you for saying that. And we take that partnership with the utmost. We hold it so dear.
Yeah, so it's an honor to be here with you. So Lara, if you have any questions, feel free to jump in. And same with the viewers, if you have any questions, probably via Lara, I'd be honored to answer them and do my best to help connect you to what's going on the ground. So in terms of the update, as you're all aware, I'm sure the last few weeks have been weeks in which it's been, I don't want to say more of the same, because our operations are continuing. We're continuing to deepen our successes, particularly in the southern arena in Gaza, in central and southern Gaza, in the 4 camps, which is Deir el-Balach area in the central Gaza Strip, and also in Khan Yunis. Khan Yunis is well known because it's the many of Hamas's major strongholds are there. It's actually the home of Yahya Sinwar and Ismail Haniyeh, and so there's a lot of focus, a lot of time being spent there, both because there's intelligence that we need to get regarding the hostages, and also because there's significant Hamas infrastructure that we're dismantling. Now, anybody who knows anything about urban warfare will be aware that the battle that we're fighting is one in more complex reality than any modern army or any army in the history of warfare has fought, with enemies that are underground, underneath hospitals, graveyards, schools, completely hidden amongst civilian infrastructure. And so this takes time. Now, major success and a major additional reason why it takes so long, obviously, is the hostages, but it's also because every step of the way that we go and every area, every tunnel that we conquer, we're also gathering further intelligence regarding the whereabouts of the hostages, regarding the whereabouts of key Hamas leaders, and honestly, also regarding the existence of additional tunnels. And the reality is that Lara, having the tunnels underground is a huge strategic challenge, which no army has dealt with before, where we have modern armaments that we're using. Our multidimensional unit helps coordinate between different units in the IDF, between the Air Force, the Navy, the ground forces, intelligence forces, and all types of modern devices, some of which I can share and some of which I might not be able to. And also all types of robots and intelligent devices used for gathering intelligence underground. Now, the Yahalom unit, which has existed for many years, but has grown in recognition due to the current underground operations, have been highly active in this combat. Very, very few operations move forward, especially not underground, without their input, without their bomb dismantling forces, getting rid of booby traps, and preparing the way for additional forces. And they've been working with some very sophisticated and modern devices. That's probably as much as I can say. But it's
maybe I can ask you about the tunnels, because it seems that there are daily reports about new tunnel shafts being discovered, and these are lavish bunkers, like underground weapon factories, storage facilities. It's, how is the IDF handling that? And the follow-up question is, we're also hearing these reports that Hamas is attempting to regroup in the north. And when we think, like, how is that possible? It must be through the tunnels. So how can the IDF truly address this subterranean web network that just seems to be endless, with all of these secret trapdoors and multi-levels? Like, it just, it's wild.
It really is wild, Lara. The reality that we have to deal with, in which our very brave soldiers are dealing with, some of them and many of them with wives and children. And even
we adopt the Yahalom unit. Like, we know the Yahalom unit for years.
So it's the Yahalom unit, but all the IDF different units, the paratroopers, Golani, and many Miluim reservist units. And even those who don't have wives and children, every single soldier, or the vast majority of them, has a mother, has a father who are waiting for them, and the bravery that they're displaying, going underground or fighting these terrorists, which are, as you said, in a complex network of webs underground. It's immense. It's immense, and it's very brave. Now, how are we going about it? It's by using these. First of all, doing it slowly. One of the reasons why everything is taking so long is because we need to move so slowly, which, for the reasons which I detailed above, if I want to number them, 1 is to protect our own soldiers, 2 to protect hostages, 3 to gather intelligence, and 4 also to protect civilians, which Hamas continues to hide behind as their modus operandi. Right. Now, speaking about the north of the Gaza Strip, it's a very good question of how does Hamas manage to get back? The reality is that some of their terrorists never left. They're deeply hidden amongst the civilian population. The civilian population that left, many of them are the most vulnerable. So people that weren't able to leave despite all the warnings because of either physical or mental capacities. And Hamas chooses to stay and hide even amongst those people. And that just shows how deplorable and how devastating their tactics are. And in addition to that, part of it is through tunnels. They do keep popping up through different tunnels, but much of the Hamas presence is through sort of very small groups that are trying to take hold in the northern Gaza Strip. And part of the reason for that is because we've focused our operations on Khan Yunis and areas further in the south, and because we've sent some of our reservists home to rejuvenate, to spend time with their families, and because we haven't sought to simply stay in order to be rough on or rough up any Palestinians. We're there only for operational reasons. And when Hamas continues to emerge in the northern Gaza Strip, we go in. And the fact that at the beginning of our operations, we had to send in 2 to 3, I think 3 divisions, each numbering many thousands of troops. And in the same areas, now we're doing targeted raids of only company or battalion levels. And the fact that we're able to reach very similar results in much smaller amount of time is actually a proof of our success. Now, all of our enemies will come and say, "Oh, how terrible," or it shows how weak the IDF is. They're completely unsuccessful in their operations. But the exact opposite is true. The fact that we can leave and we have the confidence to leave, and we're not trying to stay there to choke anyone. We're leaving when we've done our mission, and we're going in when Hamas reemerges. And sadly, the reality has been that Hamas has continued to reemerge in the northern Gaza Strip, and has led to one of the biggest tragedies of the war so far regarding the humanitarian aid convoy, in which many dozens of people were killed. And obviously, there's been a lot of disinformation going around about exactly what happened. And I can say that in our own systems, the investigative branches of the IDF, the highest up investigational committees are looking at it, and will give their results when they have them. What we do know is that the convoys were attacked by definitely a number of gangs in the northern Gaza Strip. Many of those gangs seek to steal aid and then sell it at a profit. And to all this, the aid was going to the people there. These gangs did not have to raid the trucks. The aid was going to get to the people, but bad actors are seeking to get involved and seeking to create chaos. And that's what Hamas benefits from. It's what Hamas's benefactors in Iran benefit from. It's what our enemies benefit from. It's chaos, and then blaming all the chaos on us. And we continue to remain committed to being a force which enables as much order as possible, which is a force for stability, which is a force for good, even in war, which is not a good thing. We don't like war. We're not going to war because we believe in war. We're going to war because it was forced upon us on October 7th. And we continue to seek to bring as much stability amidst all that chaos.
You know, it's amazing to hear you share like exactly what Hamas is reporting as a weakness is actually a demonstration of the IDF's strength. Like it's another example of how the mainstream media sometimes parrots Hamas's talking points. And, you know, and we're just so fortunate to be able to access a primary source like yourself, who's there and who is, you know, part of what's happening. So we're really, really grateful for that. You know, another Hamas talking point that has made its way into the mainstream news here. This one is vis-a-vis the Wall Street Journal. You know, apparently Sinwar says that Hamas will emerge after the war from the rubble of Gaza. They will declare a historic victory. That they will that they basically have Israel right where they want them. You know, what kind of, do we just sort of chalk this up to you know, to them needing to save face? Or is this another attempt at psychological warfare against the Jewish people? Or how do you take a comment like that from Hamas's leadership?
So I want to be honest, Lara, that speaking about Yahya Sinwar and the Hamas's general strategy is not my area of expertise. I'm here in the military, and I think most of the people that you support are people who are on the ground, doing their very best to protect the Jewish state of Israel, to protect the democratic Jewish state of Israel, Jewish and democratic state of Israel. And we are fighting our enemies on the ground. And I take my hat off to every IDF soldier that's there dealing with enemies. That said, what we do know about the Hamas strategy, about Yahya Sinwar's strategy, about, again, the Iranian strategy, is psychological warfare is one of their go-tos. They know they can't compete with us for military strength, where we have one of the most technological and strong, and with another, probably the most or highly motivated and most intelligent forces in the world. We have very, very high levels of motivation throughout the military. And the fact that this very week there was a lot of fake news going around regarding the IDF spokesperson, our unit, specifically saying the spokesperson and a number of spokespeople were resigning. It's a classic example of psychological warfare to try and show that we're weak. And when we're attacked on those sort of places, it shows how strong we are and how desperate our enemies are. Regarding, do Hamas see it as their absolute strategy? Again, that's beyond my area of expertise. But what I can tell you is the IDF is strong. We're going to deal with Hamas. We're ready to deal with them. And thankfully, in this current operation, we've had the opportunity to dismantle huge amount of terrorist infrastructure. Now, I'm saying it's an opportunity, not because it's something that we love doing. We don't love sending the best of our sons and daughters into Gaza, and I'm emphasizing daughters. This is the first actual operation we've officially had female IDF soldiers inside Gaza operating. And that's some of it was due to necessity, but it really is also a testament to the progressive nature of the IDF.
International Women's Day is in 2 days, and it's interesting that you happen to mention that today, because we're so proud of the women of the IDF, and they are young women, they are mothers, they are every woman, and they are out there risking it all, standing shoulder to shoulder in combat with everyone else. And it's just been so inspiring to see how nimble they are and how quick and how they've proven themselves. They're battle tested. They're incredible.
Absolutely, 100%. I couldn't have said it better. I think I'm a former tank officer myself, and I know that back in the day, there was a lot of discussion of whether or not women could be tank fighters or not. Actually, there was a discussion in the Israeli Supreme Court about it earlier on this year, before October 7th. And then on October 7th, one of the Israeli female tank crews showed great valor and valiance, just like all of the IDF troops who were there on that tragic day, but fought bravely, and it silenced many of the critics. I think that the reality is that we have to take our hats off to the very brave women who have paved the way for many other women, both in the IDF and I think for women around the world, showing what women are able to do when given the opportunity, and when us men create enough space for them, or the tragic situation requires them to step up. And it's an example yet again of how Israel flourishes in times of challenge. In every crisis is both it's a tragedy, and our hearts stay with the families of all those who have suffered, who have paid the ultimate price, and many of those hostages who are still in Gaza. But with this tragedy and with this challenge, there are also amazing opportunities, which many Israelis have stepped up to the plate. You saw it in response to October 7th. We see it in the continued response of both the Israeli public and also all of you guys who are watching today, of how much support that we've had, of how you've sort of lifted us up in these difficult times, and seeing how you stood with us. It's really heartwarming. And it's really, really important, especially with, you mentioned previously, Lara, regarding all the mainstream media. And I think the mainstream media actually has, in a different way to many conflicts in the past, has stood by Israel, at least the editorial boards. You always have a few who try to, for the purpose of being neutral and expressing all sides, will venture into propaganda, and will even be willing to accept narratives which verge on the obscure. But the point is, we're extremely grateful for the support that we've had, and I think it's a testament to what we've created here in Israel. We're not a perfect country. We never will be. I know Americans, you always, I'll quote some of your documents of trying to create a more perfect union. We in Israel are trying to create a more perfect Jewish and democratic state, in which we can have stability, in which we can have safety, in which we can have peace, both for ourselves and for the very complicated, difficult neighborhood that we're in.
Right.
And we appreciate your support in getting us there.
Thank you. Every single person on this call is physically in America, but our hearts are with every soldier. Our hearts are in Israel, and we are with you 1,000%, infinite percent. And so however you can relay that message to every soldier you see. I wish that we could hug each and every one of them, because we're forever indebted to them. And it breaks our hearts also, like when we see yesterday there was a West Bank stabbing, an IDF soldier was wounded. It seems like there's a lot of terror attacks. Speaking of psychological warfare, there's been quite a few terror attacks, and we know that it would be exponentially worse if not for our IDF soldiers who are busy night and day thwarting those attacks. And this is, as I recently read, that the Palestinian Authority dedicated another $100 million for pay for slay. It's just this incredible, this horrible situation. How is the IDF dealing with these threats, these terror attacks that seem to be happening more and more frequently, beyond Gaza? Now we're talking about in Judea and Samaria and in Jerusalem. Like, how is the IDF responding to what feels like attacks from within?
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's a difficult question, but the answer is actually quite simple. The IDF has been, as I said, a force for stability, seeking to bring stability wherever we may be needed. In Judea and Samaria, we've been present, and since October 7th, there's actually been far less attacks than many political theorists, many people around the world were concerned of. And one of the major reasons has been the sacrifices that have been paid, and this is actually by many IDF reservists, because most of the main forces have been in Gaza. So it's often many people who have families at home who have been operating in counterterrorism operations in Judea and Samaria. And obviously, every terror attack is a tragedy, but I don't want to play it down because it's a serious threat. But we're aware of these threats. We know how to deal with them, and with Ramadan coming up, we're also on high alert. There have been a lot of exercises that the Central Command has been operating, and we're really ready. We're ready for things to be a lot worse than they are. Obviously, we hope it won't come to that, and we hope that the Palestinian Authority and other groups will show leadership and restraint. Just like on October 7th, there was the expectation by Hamas that the whole Arab world, the whole Muslim world would erupt against Israel. And as there was a lot of conflict within Israel in the 2021 round of hostilities, when Hamas barraged us with a lot of rockets. But none of that has happened. There have been very brave Israeli Arab leaders who have stood up and said, no, we're not going to play into Hamas's game. And the IDF will be ready for what we have to be. But we're also very grateful for every leader who doesn't choose the Palestinian Authority's route of pay for slay and doesn't choose to glorify terror. And so anybody that's a force for stability in the region is somebody that we can work with. I hope that answers the question.
No, it absolutely does. Like you even I was going to ask you, what we think could happen around Ramadan, where historically there's been an uptick in violence, and certainly given the current events, you could extrapolate from there. But it sounds like we're hoping that the goodwill will prevail, and that it won't reach what the conclusion of our imaginations.
No, absolutely. The reality is that Ramadan is an opportunity for radical jihadists to try and take over and to coerce the moderate Muslim groups that would just seek to spend Ramadan with their families and enjoy a good iftar, which is the meal after the fast. And there are many Muslims who want to just have a peaceful Ramadan, and Hamas is clearly trying to rile up the Muslim world against Israel. And Israel, as a democracy, as a country that seeks to empower the Muslim population within our country, is doing everything we can against that. But the IDF is ready. We're ready for any scenario, and we hope we won't have to use as much force as we can use, but we've shown that the amount of power that we have is a formidable force, and we believe that when deterrence is necessary, that our enemies will look at deterrence, and when goodwill is necessary, we'll show our enemies will see the goodwill, or those who could potentially be our enemies if they chose the wrong course. But we're very prepared. And we've dealt with such things in the past. And we're hoping that Hamas won't succeed to make its way into the hearts of many people that really have everything to lose from siding with them. And the same is what's true in this part of the world is also true in the United States and other parts of the world, of those who would seek to align themselves with Hamas. And all of you who are listening to this call, we really are grateful for the way that you've spoken up and will speak up to recognize the need for stability, and the way in which Hamas is a force to do anything but that. And we're really grateful for you in that way.
Thank you. It's great to hear that the IDF is, prepared for everything. One other thing I did want to speak to you about today. I know that we're already reaching towards the end of our time together, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the 30 to 50 launches from the north yesterday, that barrage that happened all at once. And it feels like such an escalation. This is happening at the exact same time that even the United States is putting pressure on Israel to have a ceasefire. We saw the address from Kamala Harris a couple of days ago. So it seems that at the same time that on multiple fronts, these terrorist groups are baiting the IDF, the world is also putting pressure on Israel to stand down. It's, all of those people in the north, they've been evacuated. They can't return to their homes. They're refugees in their own country. How can the IDF respond to this earthquake?
So I think to clarify, the earthquake has been ongoing. It's not a single sudden event. There have been attacks since October 8th on the citizens of the north and the military bases in the north, and we've seen pictures of civilian homes that have been completely obliterated. So this isn't a shock. And I think it's important for us to remember that, and to not give enough credit, or not give too much credit to our enemies that would seek to say, oh, this is a shock, Israel's suddenly taken by surprise. The IDF is aware of what's going on in the north, and actually we've been very successful in pushing back Hizbullah from the northern border. Now, they still have a presence. Their presence is a threat. It's not something that we can live with. But in some ways, the fact that they're firing so many rockets all in one day, right when there's all kinds of talk of ceasefires and all types of settlement, in my mind, it's a view of desperation. They're aware that we're striking their capabilities. They're aware that we're pushing them back, and they're aware that there's international pressure. And again, I'll risk venturing into territory which is beyond my military position, but because I'm a reservist, I'll speak for half a moment as the fact that I'm also a civilian. There's many Lebanese civilians that have been removed from their homes in South Lebanon, and Hezbollah is aware of that. They're losing this conflict now. Obviously, the fact that many of our citizens are still not able to return home safely is a problem, and it's something that we're dealing with. The reality is that even some of those civilians from the northern areas who've been evacuated are choosing to continue living in their homes. Now, that's not something that as the military we're willing to allow happening, that people live in their homes and they're under threats. That's an absolute no. But the fact that the civilians are choosing to be there shows their commitment, shows the fact that Hezbollah is not winning the war on that front. And that's definitely a reality that often doesn't get covered on the news. And the fact, speaking of earthquakes, the amount of strikes that we've had on Hezbollah infrastructure, on command and control centers, on launch positions, on weapons manufacturing centers in South Lebanon is an earthquake for Hezbollah, and it's something that they had hoped wouldn't happen. But we've been pushing them back, and together with the political echelon, we're hopefully we'll reach a solution which hopefully we won't have to go to war in Lebanon. Again, just like I said earlier, we don't seek to go to war. We're not hungry for war. Obviously, you'll hear sometimes you'll hear soldiers saying, yes, we want to strike them, we want to hit them, and that's good. We want our soldiers and our fighters to be ready for war. As a country, as a military, we're not looking for it. If we have no other choice, we will go there, and we're ready. We're more than ready. We've learned a lot of lessons from the Second Lebanon War. We've learned lessons from what took place in Gaza, and we're highly prepared. Obviously, a war with Lebanon is something that would be very difficult on a civilian level, and so our job is to protect our civilians and to create as minimal harm to our civilians. If that is by following the political echelon's decision to have a peace agreement or to have a ceasefire, whatever it may be, that's what we'll do. If it's through going deep into South Lebanon or just slightly into South Lebanon, that's what we'll do. The important thing to emphasize is that we're ready. Although some people talk about the reservists being tired, being worn out, wanting to get back to their families, back to their homes, that things couldn't be further from the truth. The reservists want to protect the country. They want to make sure the civilians of the North can come home. And many of them say, we don't want to go home. We want to make sure that the civilians are safe. And that's something that, again, not the news won't always catch on to that. But as those who are supporters around the world, you should know you're supporting people that are very proud of their work, that are very focused on their mission, which is providing security to the state of Israel. And I'm convinced that they're going to stay doing that. And even though you'll hear the one-offs that may be losing motivation, they're the rarity amidst a formidable army, which is really ready for anything.
It's incredible to hear about the soldiers' attitudes. You know, at FIDF, we often talk about how we in America take courage from their example, that their courage encourages us, that whatever we're facing in our own communities, that we want to be inspired by their courage and to face whatever it is head on. And really the IDF is that new Jewish response that says you don't get to just attack us without consequence. And it's incredible to hear about these soldiers whose morale is so high even these months in order to ensure that there is an Israel for the next generation that is safe and prosperous and a place that people want to live and can live in freely. It's incredible to hear these stories about our soldiers. They are just, it's like we're hearing the legends that we heard about the soldiers of 48 and of 73. It's like we're getting to see these stories again. It's incredible, these young men and women.
Yeah, so I just want to quickly respond to that. I know our time is running out, but it's important for me to say to everyone back home that despite the stories that you may hear, Israel isn't going anywhere. The IDF is committed, is strong to its mission, and we're going to be here when your children and your children's children come to visit, if they come to serve in the IDF, if they just need to know that there is that protection. And I also want to recognize that we do have a privilege being in the state of Israel. We don't have to face we don't have to face the reality of being a minority or being a small community, and we can stand together. And the fight and the challenge that you guys are all facing back home is one that I want to recognize, and I want to thank you for taking that position. And to just like you stand with us, we stand with you as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you feel like our audience should be sharing in our spheres of influence that you feel maybe isn't getting out there enough? I will toss the floor to you.
I mean, there's so much that isn't getting out. So I don't want to start over, but
Sure.
I think what's important is the fact that there's a younger generation that in many ways has not been taught to think critically, that is being sold propaganda online, and for you to continue sending your children to programs where they're taught to think critically, where they're taught to think for themselves, where they're taught the value of transparency, and and many other very key and significant Jewish values that we believe in here is really important. So in terms of I believe that we as the IDF provide the security and the stability so that the next generations can grow up and can ask the difficult questions, and people will criticize us, and that's okay. It's okay to have criticism. It's important to think critically. That's the only weapon that we have against enemies that are full of disinformation and full of propaganda. And the way to stand up to that is with the truth. And the truth isn't something that's easy. It's not something that you can just sell with quick sound bites. So I want to encourage you to keep educating your children, keep sending them, keep knowing that we're fighting the battle so that your children can grow up and have a good education, unlike many who are sadly falling into traps, which can only happen to those who aren't educated.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Major David. We have so enjoyed hearing from you, and thank you for being so open with all of our questions. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me here, and have a good rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All the best.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard Major David. We are not going anywhere. Israel is not going anywhere, and neither is FIDF. As we conclude this briefing, I just want to remind everyone that we cannot grow complacent. Our young men and women are still on the front lines. We must not get used to seeing fallen soldiers on our feeds, seeing attacks against our family in Israel. We are with our soldiers. They are the new Jewish response. If not for our soldiers, then October 7th would have spread to Ashkelon and Tel Aviv. They are the reason that the Jewish people are a force to be reckoned with, and why we always have a home. We are safer worldwide because of what they are doing. And so if you want to support our men and women in uniform, please feel free to go to FIDF.org. We will take you there. We will keep you connected to our soldiers. Our soldiers aren't headlines. They are humans. They are our brothers, our sisters, our sons, our daughters. And it's our shared responsibility to stand with them. And we will, for as long as it takes. Am Yisrael Chai, forever.